notice of any freight increases. And you can see that from the Chicago area, this line here is freight rates from the Chicago area per metric ton to Asia. And I think I picked out Taiwan. Basically, it cost us about $600 a metric ton. Pardon me, $600 a container to ship from Chicago to Taiwan by container, which is close to $30 a metric ton. Then in 2006, all of a sudden rates started to go up. And as you can see, they went up, every 30 days, 60 days. And once again, when bulk ocean freight rates increased tremendously, so did container freight rates. And we've seen a tremendous increase in freight rates on containers the last 4 to 5 months. And I know any of you that have shipped by containers or received grain and feedstuffs by containers have seen those rates go up. Back in December, when ocean freight rates went up, that spread narrowed back down. And now it sits at probably $15 to $20 a metric ton of an advantage with container shipments versus bulk grain shipments. This chart here is nothing more than just a price difference. Once again, you can see early, bulk freight rates were less than container freight rates in dollars per metric ton. In 2004, we saw a spread of over $40. This caused, basically the first country that really jumped on the bandwagon for containers was Taiwan. This caused Taiwan to switch a lot of their imports from bulk vessel to containers. And then it dipped down, and container loadings didn't really go down, but they didn't really expand a lot during the 2004 through the beginning of 2006 year. But then all of a sudden, about a year ago, things really took off to where that spread got upwards of over $60 a metric ton. And not only did Taiwan jump on, we had the businesses truly really expanded to where there are probably 10 countries now that are really seeing containerized imports because of the spread. In the United States, there's two main ways to export grain, or two main ways that grain is exported by containers. We have what we call ports, container yards that are located on the coast. And some of those would be Tacoma, Long Beach, Seattle, LA, Oakland on the west coast. And on the east coast, you're going to have Norfolk, Savannah, Mobile, Charleston's in here. Those are the ports. Those are the ports that containers sail out of. And the other way that containers are loaded in the central or in the United States are what we call inland container yards. In this case, Chicago is by far the largest, but there are inland container yards in St. Louis, Minneapolis, Omaha, Kansas City, Columbus, and Memphis. These are some of the inland container yards, the largest of which is the Chicago area, Kansas City, Columbus, Memphis, Minneapolis, Cincinnati. These are just a few. There's probably 20 of them. Probably a few more than that even. Let me go back here. I've got a moment here. And go back. The red region here is the corn and soy belt. And what can happen is you can take grain in that's in the corn and soy belt and take it to Chicago or to Columbus or to St. Louis or Kansas City or Omaha or Minneapolis, one of these inland yards, load it on a container, and then that container is taken by the railroad to the west coast or to the east coast to be loaded on a boat. Or you can take grain that's loaded or that's grown in some of these fringe areas, and you can rail it in bulk hopper cars to the West Coast where it's transloaded, or to the East Coast where it's transloaded on containers. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about inland port loading, and that'll be mainly these inland ports of Chicago, Kansas City, Omaha, Minneapolis. Back in 2004 when we started, and many people started, it was mainly a transloading operation, meaning that the grain was produced by the farmer, hauled to normally a local country elevator located near their production area. From there, the elevator or the farmer would haul it to the transloader, which is located very close to a container yard. The transloader then would put that grain from a hopper truck or from a truck onto a container, take it back to the railroad. From the railroad, it would be railed to the West Coast, to the port, and put on a vessel. But the demand for capacity has increased so much in the last 3 years that many exporters have now gone to what they call source loading. And in that case, you really don't have a specific, what you call a transloading operation, but the grain is loaded right at the elevator, right at the country elevator level. In fact, we've got 2 large farmers now that are actually loading containers on their own property. So it's actually going right directly from the farmer, right into the container, and right bound for export. So you can see by going to source loading, one, you open up capacity because you don't have to rely on a specific transloader, but you also save some of the steps in the transportation and the logistics process, trying to make it more competitive and more efficient. This is a transload facility located in the Chicago area. As you can see, a lot of transload facilities don't have storage. In this case, this facility does have some storage, although the storage that it does have is only enough to basically hold what it loads in one day. Trucks come in, they're weighed on a scale, a certified scale. They go up, they're sampled, they go around, they dump, and if they're feed loads, they go directly on the containers. If they're grains, they usually go in a couple silos, and then as the containers show up, they're loaded in the silos. This is just another picture of that facility. Relatively simple facilities. This particular facility does about 200 containers a day. Almost all the transload facilities or source loading facilities, country elevators, sample their grain as it's coming in. We don't have the ability, as bulk vessel shippers do, to really segregate grain and re-blend it back. So most container loaders only accept high quality grain to begin with. Because it's difficult, we don't have the space, and many times this particular truck will go right directly into the container, and the next speaker, or the speaker after lunch from FGIS, Chuck, will tell you a little bit about the requirements that we're under, but basically we cannot, there's really no way that we can blend. This is just an overhead view. It shows this particular truck is dumping in the soybean dump, in the grain dump. Up in the corner here, there are 2 feed dumps. In this facility, they try to keep the grain separate from the feed stuff so we avoid contamination. It's just a truck of soybeans coming in, getting dumped in a pit. From there, it goes up a belt into a silo, and from the silo, it goes directly in the container. This is a loading platform. This particular facility has the ability to load 6 containers, have 6 containers backed in at one time. The containers are backed in. We have a belt scale that gives us weights that are approximate, and then they're weighed over a certified FGIS scale. The grain is pretty much just augured in the back. The wood that you see here is all heat-treated wood. Has a seal, so it's easily accepted.